Decision makers contend with information about educational interventions and programs claiming to be effective in improving students' learning. The ability to access research on a given intervention or program and assess its quality is critical for decision makers and educational practitioners so that they can decide which interventions or programs merit consideration for implementation. In this video, we will first discuss different sources of information such as newspapers, books, and journals. Then we will cover how to access research-based information. You are likely to encounter many different sources of information about educational programs and what people think might work to improve education practices. These sources include newspapers, magazines, television, academic and popular press books, journals, results you find from search engines, and the What Works Clearinghouse. Newspapers, magazines, and television are able to provide current and recent information. Their stories can be based on developments and events that are hours or days old. They are also accessible both in terms of being able to gain access to the content and in terms of their narrative styles. These kinds of sources work hard to be understood by a general audience. This can be a strength or a weakness. Newspapers, magazines, and television, however, have a number of specific weaknesses. Their stories are often written by reporters who are not experts in the field. They may lack knowledge of the context or history of the story. For example, a story on a highly successful inner-city school may fail to discuss relevant factors that are related to its performance, such as additional external funding, selection criteria, or a more homogeneous student body. Popular media outlets, such as these, often also lack references or citations for those interested in obtaining more information or verifying the facts of the story. Like newspapers, magazines, and television, popular press books can be highly accessible sources of information. They are generally written for an audience that has more interest than the general public, and consequently, often provide more information, including references and sources, than other forms of popular media. However, popular press books do not generally provide original research, and they do not generally have a high level of rigor in how they review and report research conducted by others. That is, such books are less likely to critically review and analyze the studies they examine, and consequently do not provide enough information for you to evaluate and understand the strength of the evidence presented. Academic books have several advantages. They tend to provide in-depth examinations of a topic. Such books generally provide a history and context for their topic and the conclusions they offer. This can make it easier to understand how and why prior research was conducted and what was found. While every author has his or her own views and perspectives, academic books provide extensive sources and citations for you to examine if you wish. Additionally, these types of books often include original research. However, academic books are less likely to be current, often discussing events or topics that are years old, sometimes even decades old. This is especially true if a book pulls together a large body of research, which itself may span many years. The intended audiences for academic books tend to be other academics and professionals in the field. As a result, they are not written for general audiences. This can either be a strength or a weakness, depending on one's perspective and needs. Academic journals are not as current as popular media, but are typically more current than academic books. Their publication process, in part because of their peer review requirements, means it can take 2 or 3 years to publish a journal article, though sometimes it is faster. Journal articles, in contrast to books, tend to be very narrowly focused on a single topic. Like academic books, they are intended for a technical audience, often even more so than a book. This can make them difficult to read and understand for people who are not also researchers. But what primarily sets many academic journal articles apart is that they are peer-reviewed. This means that other experts in the field critically reviewed the article prior to publication. Articles published in peer-reviewed journals are reviewed by several other experts in the field to ensure the quality of the study. These journals are often referred to as refereed or scholarly. In many peer-reviewed journals, the reviewers and the author's identities are not shared to ensure that the article is reviewed on its own merits, not the reputation of the authors. In most cases, an article is accepted for publication only after several rounds of review and improvement. If the reviewers do not believe the article is of sufficient quality, they may recommend against publishing it. Many academic journals have rejection rates in excess of 90%. This process of examination, criticism, and feedback provides a generally high level of quality control for the studies published in peer-reviewed journals. One good way is to use the ERIC website to check whether the source is from a journal that uses peer review. ERIC is supported by the federal government's Institute for Education Sciences. It is one of the largest education databases with over 1.5 million records of journal articles, research reports, curricula, and teaching guides, conference papers, dissertations and theses, and books. You can choose to view peer-reviewed only results from your search of education resources by checking that box while searching. ERIC also indicates when the source is from a peer-reviewed journal, as do most research database search engines. In addition, there are other ways you can check to see whether an article is from a peer-reviewed source. You can check the structure of the article. Most peer-reviewed articles will have the same basic organizational structure, though the terms may differ. Look for sections such as abstract, literature review, methodology, results, conclusion, and references. You can take into account the advertising. Peer-reviewed journals seldom contain advertisements, or if they do, it's often for professional associations. There may be ads in the first or last few pages, but in the main body or in the article, you will rarely see advertisements. You can also look for information about the publication process. Is there any information about the publication process of the article, such as date of initial submission, date for revisions, and final acceptance date? These publication steps are usually found in peer-reviewed journals and often absent in other types of publications. If the answer is yes to all these questions about structure, advertising, and the publication process, the journal may very well be peer-reviewed. Search engines are powerful, but do not discriminate well and can lead you to questionable sources. There are options, however, that can help you with your search. Google Scholar, for example, identifies credible resources. These include academic books, academic journals, government resources, and more. Google Scholar will not find everything available and may find some things that are not high quality, but it is a much more focused search engine than the regular Google search or other common search tools. Always carefully consider information you find on the internet. The What Works Clearinghouse, often referred to as WWC, is one trustworthy online resource that can help you find high-quality research studies. It was established by the U.S. Department of Education's Institute of Education Sciences to provide educators, policymakers, and the public with a central, independent, and trusted source of scientific evidence of what works in education. The goal of the Clearinghouse is to help decision-makers by providing a web portal of comprehensive, systematic, high-quality reviews of studies on the effectiveness of educational programs, products, practices, and policies. The WWC does not conduct research. Instead, the WWC reviews research on products, practices, programs, and policies in the field of education, and provides summaries of their impacts. The reviews are objective, based on stringent criteria, and all information is freely available. We strongly encourage you to look at the WWC website anytime you are looking for research on an education-related topic. Learn more about study design, design standards, and find existing research on different educational programs, products, practices, and explore evidence-based practice guides, individual studies, and intervention reports at the Whatworks Clearinghouse. You can also learn more about understanding the evidence definitions for education programs through these videos from the U.S. Department of Education.